let's face it, as much as we can structure a game to be as perfect as possible, there's going to be nuances when you do things in the real life. But having some skin in the game, some experience, even if it's in that digital scope, based on stories where people have had these kind of experiences, you're going to have a much stronger foundation than if you're going into it where you've next clicked, read a PDF, good luck. It's safe to fail in learning environments. And the key thing of what we were doing is you were able to actually make those choices, make those decisions into a place where it's not the real world, where the consequences can really be quite dire. What you're doing is you're leaning into past experiences from people, their stories, and you're incorporating that into a model, into a game where it's got a structure.
When most people hear the words e-learning, they usually think about pressing next 47 times and then answering a multiple choice question at the end and falling asleep. What if e-learning was more like a game and more engaging and actually gave you decisions that actually mattered? Today, we are going to talk about the differences between off-the-shelf, very vanilla e-learning modules compared to gamified learning experiences that actually engage with your class and your learners. I am joined today by someone who has already made an appearance on the Briefing Room podcast before. Austen, do you mind introducing yourself?
So my name's Austen. I am the creative lead or principal in the digital learning design team here at CDSDS.
So you've already been on the podcast before, speaking about e-learning. And this time I wanted to bring you onto the podcast to talk more in depth about what makes good e-learning, and two, from a standpoint of you've worked on a project recently called Ethical Edge, and it's won an award.
It has, yeah.
Do you want to speak about the award quickly?
Yeah, well, it's lovely to get the recognition. So we were in Orlando and we basically won at the ITSEC Government Audience Award, and we got gold for the project that we worked with Sandhurst. So we built Ethical Edge has come about from a gamified model that we built in hand in glove with regards to what their needs were, that we were looking for them to actually develop and build based on their whole kind of training routine that they have for their cadets at the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst. From there, it felt that it didn't need to be something like Karl said, next clicking, it's going to disengage. It needs to capture that essence of such a prestige organisation. It needed to have that look, it needed to have that feel, it needed to have that story. And that's the one thing that I got from talking to them was they're very much storytellers. Everyone seems to reinforce things with characters and personas and their background. And there was this one time. So we incorporated all that into this game model structured around their leadership framework, which we got asked, in fact, to actually submit for the competition. And we were fortunate enough to win the gold.
I'd like to start, before we go into the four sections, I just want to start with my sort of viewpoint. So I used to work in the team that you're in now. So I've got a bit of e-learning experience and also e-learning experience from my previous roles where I had to do the mandatory fire safety e-learning. And when I spoke at the start, it was quite literally, we would all go take turns. But it was one computer for everyone. You had to click next, to be about 4 pages of just reading text, and then multiple choice questions, and then read 4 more pages of text. And everyone would fall asleep, and someone would come down and they would just say what the order of the answers were, because everyone did it and it wasn't randomized. It was the same questions every time, and the answers were in the same place every time. So everyone came down and said, oh yes, it's A, D, C, A, B. And so you'd go up there, 6 minutes later, you like click in, click, like a speed run, and you wouldn't learn anything. So when a fire alarm would go off and everyone's like, what do we do in the fire drill? Well, didn't you all do the e-learning? Technically, yes, but no one actually took anything from the e-learning.
It becomes the tick box exercise that people actually say, has somebody done X? Yes, tick box that they've done it. Have they learned? Have they engaged? Have they picked up on it? Nope.
And that's where I've seen Ethical Edge, and it's not a click next, read this, click next. You've got the learner to actually take part in it and actually make decisions. So my first question is, what is gamified learning?
I'm glad you call it gamified learning, because there's a buzzword that goes around the industry, which is gamification. And it became an industry trend, much like any other kind of buzzword that gets there. And everyone will try and put, it's a game, it's got all this kind of aspect to it. But from an old school gamer, Like myself, I'm 50 this year, and with regards to it, I've been playing games since the Atari, the Spectrum, the Commodore, the whole lineage of it all went through into the early days of PC, into online gaming where you were playing alongside in the MMOs, multi-on-player games, and you're fighting challenges against bosses and stuff where there's no rules, no structure, no way of knowing what to do other than the collaborative knowledge that you're pooling with the people that you're playing alongside. And where I'm running the raids that we were actually doing there, it would be, okay, we've died against this boss and we died against this boss. But you'd be listening, okay, we failed, but what did we learn? What did we pick up on? What did you do different? And all the different elements that you're bringing up from that, it's like, well, I did this and I stood here and I did this time. And it's like, brilliant, now we apply. And what you've got there is you've got the knowledge from people actually being able to tell the stories of what they were actually doing and then what they've seen and their engagement with the situation to eventually get the boss win, the kill, whatever it is you want to call it. Now, when you take into that kind of same application into learning that we do now, it's safe to fail in learning environments. And the key thing of what we were doing is you were able to actually make those choices, make those decisions into a place where it's not the real world, where the consequences can really be quite dire. What you're doing is you're leaning into past experiences from people, their stories, and you're incorporating that into a model, into a game where it's got a structure. You may have scores. Yeah. You may have a framework. In the case of the Ethical Edge for Sandhurst, it was based around their leadership framework of what leaders are, know, and do. It may have coins, like we did Commander coins. If you've got the optimal answer, it's got these kind of aspects. But what we're really trying to do with it is we had like a guide from the side, a fourth wall breaker, that sort of the old head, young shoulders, knowledge passing on. We had the narrator to engage you, to come across the story and previously you did this and here we go through here and now this is. And what you're doing is you're starting to get to the actual characters. The characters have got personas, they've got looks, they've got feels, they've got an essence to them. So we even had people when we piloted going, what happened to Sergeant Limbu? What happens next? So they want to know more. That's the difference between a game. Yeah. A rule, a structure, even if you put it to its simplest term. This is like a choose your own adventure book, the old ones with the Steve Jackson, Ian Livingstone, and people get the claw if they don't want to die or whatever, and it's like they'll end up turning the pages. It's very much that same principle, but what we're doing is we're using lots of recognized methodology that you can actually do within the digital learning sphere and encompassing it into one model where we can mold it and adjust it based on what our clients' needs are.
So you mentioned coins and having sort of collectibles. Do you find that is to help people not disengage from the learning, or having sort of like a reward system?
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got, it is a game, and a game where it can be quite dry and quite dull. It doesn't have to be fun, although it does help if it has got something along those lines, but it does usually need a structure to be able to actually have it. Where's your beginning in aid? Where's your hooks? And if you've got a story, you want to know how are you doing. Yeah. So you could put a score in there, which you quite commonly see in that side. With regards to the coins, etc., is how, okay, I've got a score, but how do I know if I'm doing really well? And if you get like a commandant's coin, it means you've got like the policy perfect answer. Yeah. That's it, spot on. That's what, as an organization, we're looking for you to be able to do. Well done. We are trying to recognize you got that perfect. But at the same time, with regards to the way that we were actually doing this as a model, we didn't do it in the sense where you were talking about it's A, it's B, it's 1, 2, 3. We're actually setting it in a way where it doesn't matter if you were to go through that side. We'll make it very clear. The decisions you make in your story that you're coming through, in the case of Sandhurst, they go to a breakout group and they go to a workshop and talk through their decisions. You could have a decision that could be technically correct, but then morally, I felt that this is the right answer. And what we're looking for people to do is actually talk through that and consider it.
So was it a consideration then when you were, I imagine you changed with client to client, but you knew they'd go into their breakout groups. So was it, we're going to target or angle the sort of questions or the sections to, right, this is going to be a good conversational piece? Or if they weren't going to go into their breakout sessions, would that change then the sort of questions or the question escape that you'd actually ask them if it's not going to be in a conversation afterwards? Would it then change how you're going to bring a point across?
Good question. Well asked. But to be honest, is you said it earlier, we work with the client. So in the case of what this did, we had a series of subject matter experts that had skin in the game, lived experience of a lot of this.
Right.
And what we were doing was listening to what they were actually saying and what their stories they were telling. But we were also working with the legal. We were talking with the military police. We were talking with the, in the case of they were playing as a second lieutenant, we were talking to a second lieutenant who was actually doing the role, and how would they do it, and what would come of it, and what have they seen this, and what would the consequences be, and what would come next, and what would come before, and what policies could they look into, and how can we support them as a learner. So we've even built it so they've got an inventory there. They can look at the policies and check before they answer, because it's not a trap. It's a game model to give that missing element a lot of the time of what you'll actually find, where people can do learn something that they want to actually try and do, but they haven't got the real lived experience of being able to do it. So it's that missing part of when the moment matters, have you got any skin in the game? Now, you can't beat physically having to do that and actually being there and having that lived experience to be able to have it. But that can have really harsh consequences sometimes, or you can have trauma that comes about from it, or you can have so many different factors to consider. You don't want to put people into those environments. And also, if you're going to do it in a face-to-face kind of environment, you've got to get that same person, that same crew, you've got to take them into that kind of area. You've got to hope that the person that's training has got the same energy that they had the last time that they delivered it, however many times. And also, how do you scale that? It's fine if you've got a small team of 6 or 7, but what if you've got 100, 1,000, 1,000,000? How do you look at scaling that training right across? How do you look at it from a global perspective? If you want to do it in English, if you want to do it in Spanish, if you want to do it in Arabic, or whatever language it comes through. So we designed it as a model where we're listening in to what they want. And with those kind of scores and with those kind of elements, and that we're giving that believability.
Last one for this one is,
Sure.
I think we've sort of covered it, is why do games hold better attention, or why do they hold attention better?
I think games is a way of actually tackling with a training. There's lots of different ways to actually you could tackle, and you have to tackle things from a case-by-case basis. So at CDSDS, we consider ourselves tech agnostic. It's a term I learned when I was here, and I think it's great. So we're not trying to sell, although we've got this product that we do have with Ethical Edge. If it's not the right model, we would listen to what a client would be and we would develop something for them. However, the beauty of this is it's got so much reusability because it's designed pretty much where it would work in any industry. In fact, we hear the same phrase, we could use this for. And it's when people are playing it, we could use this for, or could we do it for this, or could we change this? And I think when you start to actually look at it from a game perspective, one of the things it does more than the, as you were saying at the start, the next click, next click, next click, is this engagement. And we've got voices going on. We've got the narrators going on. We've even, with our voices that we use for the one in Sandhurst, we actually recorded veterans and serving soldiers to capture that voice print, even though we put through an AI process as well. Yeah. It captures the essence of the actual person. So you've got that little bit of accent, you've got that little bit of personality. So again, you're building characters that you want to follow the story for. And I think that gets that engagement. Going back to, like I was saying, what happened with Sergeant? it's like you starting to get that bit. And also, going back to the point I said about believability, by making it a game and you've got a structure, you also get that competitiveness. So by putting the score in, by putting the competence coins in, by putting the how well did you do, or along those lines, there is an element there of fun to actually come into it as well. Even though I say you don't need it to be fun, there is a...
There are going to be a couple of people who are going, well, I scored like 96. Oh, I got 97.
I'm going to replay. I want a perfect score.
I got 4 gold coins.
Yeah.
How, when you're designing gamified learning, how do you design it to not feel like homework? I imagine there's going to be a lot of reading. It's going to be, some of the sections might be a bit chunky. How do you make it not feel like homework?
Good question, well asked. I think there's always going to be an essence where people may feel if they have to do training, if they're busy in a time-poor world, and you're taking them out of that to actually do some learning, the second you got to go and do your piece of training or your piece of learning along these lines, people are going to think it's homework, or they think it's that kind of, but it's going to be... the difference that you can actually do is if you can make it impactful.
Okay.
Straight away, if it captures the visual eye of like, ooh, what's this? and you've got that quality with the look and feel straight away, you've already got that kind of, it's like the food concept with the, you see it and you're already capturing that when you see the food and you want to see it. The same goes for the actual learning. If it looks the part right from the start and you've got that quality look and feel. I think the other thing is it can't be shiny for the sake of shiny. So what you need to do is design it in a way where it's got an essence, it's got a story. And the beauty of here, we've got a consultancy team, we've got a design team, we work hand in glove with regards to telling that story. And I say to a lot of people, the script is one of the most important things here, because that's the bit which is answering what people are asking for. That's the bit that's capturing people in. It's the bit that gives it that believability. It's a bit that gives it that essence. But also what we're able to do is when we look at our script and we look at our story, we can make sure that we're not waffling. We're not needlessly putting information that they don't need, or we can capture the emotion that we need for the actual moment. We tackled some very difficult topics in the stuff that we did for a number of these projects that we've done, both for Pirbright and for Sandhurst now, and talking about things like sexual assault, drug taking, both accidental and intentional, theft, and how do you go about that when you're cold, no skin in the game?
So how would you make that a game as well, and not make it like an entertaining game when you are tackling sensitive?
100%, yeah. That's where I think we've got a behavioural psychologist, so we can tap into that with the work that we're actually doing. Anna, she's fantastic. She can help us on that. The other aspect is, from my kind of perspective, I've worked in the humanitarian sector for 6 years, so that helped me to actually bring that aspect down as a youth worker. The design kind of look and feel from our team, we'll make sure that it's got that visual and it's got that empathy as you're going through the story. For the consultancy side, what they'll do is they'll make sure it's actually hitting that moment of, okay, are we tactically doing this in the right message? Are we capturing this in the right essence?
So what makes a learning experience immersive? Where's the point where it's just reading walls of text and then you go a full-blown game? Where's the sort of middle point where it starts to be immersive? Or what's the point where you've learned in the past of like, this would be a good sort of immersive thing to put inside the game?
So it's going to be different for every situation. I can give a couple of examples of how I've tackled it. Is probably a good way of doing it. So if you're going to bring it into a game, a lot of the time you'll have a subject matter expert is very passionate about a particular element. Yeah. And they want a wall of text. You've worked in our department before.
Yeah,
a wall of text.
And they won't budge on it.
Must go in it. It won't budge. It has to go in. But the key thing is you've got to remember, from the audience perspective, what we need to do is deliver that in a way that they can pick up on it. So when it comes to a game, what you can do is you can, depending on what style of game you do, in the case of this, we can bring it into the dialogue of a situation where we put them in the shoes of that kind of happening and succinct it down. We can also use our fourth wall breaker to actually, in times like this, it would be good to do this side of it. The other things what you can do is you can do all the supplementary bits that support around it. You can set the scene with a narrator, or we can put video in there that sort of gives a scene of what's going on. In the case of the Serve to Lead one on Game 3, when people made the decisions, there's a news feed going on in the background. In that kind of sense of when you're in deployment, you're always being watched, there's always this going on. So the news feed will actually adjust based on their decisions behind them. Little subtle Easter eggs that you can pick up on that kind of thing, where it's a subtle nod. The same can be said of, like, I remember a situation with that wall of text in the previous project I worked on, and I turned it into a podcast, very much like this, where it was two people talking through, and then it was like they were listening to it, a podcast as the actual player was coming through it, and then afterwards they went and carried on the rest of the story. You could put that, if you wanted to, into the background, and you've got that kind of message still coming through, and you make sure before they can move on, the key bits you want from that podcast are there. So it's about clever design of how do you, in a time-poor world, use the short amount of span of time that you can to capture that audience, capture their attention, but make sure, especially when you're doing it, you're not trying to take them down lots of branches of, and then they could, and then they could. And it's not, you've got a core story that you're trying to tell. You've got decisions that they'll make from that, but you want to bring them back onto it. And that's very much what we tend to do. Is like, we want to make sure.
I'm just thinking in my head as well, from a design standpoint, you don't want to have 101 different branching scenarios.
You don't want to make it
because you'll be in storyline for a long time.
But there's a key thing to that as well, is if you have those 101, let's just say, even what you're doing is you're potentially putting people into bad. You're going to remember the experience you did. So if you take them down an actual path, what you're doing is they're going to remember that path. Where it's great if you can take them 2 steps or so and back. So they make their mistake, but then you guide them back and then they have that same story. So what you know is when you're going back from your organization thing, everybody's got the same level of knowledge. Everyone's done the same piece of training, but their journey may be slightly different and they would have picked up different things. And in fact, especially where you're picking up on it, you can see why their decisions on it. We've got a situation there where there's a vehicle traveling down a road. They've got orders where they have to keep the 2 vehicles together, and then the logistics, they've got to get to the harbour and you're not allowed to separate the vehicles, and then they see a road traffic accident on the side, and it's a humanitarian support mission. So they've got hearts and minds aspects of where they're trying to support the local community, but you're not allowed to separate the vehicles and you can't go to their... What decisions are you making there? And this leans back to what I was saying before about you may have a policy correct, but you've also got a decision in the moment.
So you've mentioned your humanitarian history. This then, I imagine it wouldn't just apply to a military sort of project or customer. It can be used for anything.
Oh, 100%. Anything you could tell a story for, you could do this for. Yeah, it literally, whatever industry you actually want to do, there's going to be the same scope of actually want to do it. And it's, again, we would ask the same question. Give us stories of where things have happened that you want to address. What do you want to tackle? What do you want to do? What's important? And then from that, we can build out that narrative. And it doesn't have to be just one. It can be like we've done these over series of days or series of weeks or different games where you've got different modules, but you're tackling different topics.
So then to do that, and you've touched on it before in conversations with you, but to make that sort of world, are you then using AI images, or are you using stock imagery, or are you using going down to an army barracks and taking photos of real scenarios, real rooms and real people? Or is it a mixture of both? For say, project by project basis. But like, if you're going to make it a world, take the Sandhurst project for instance, how was that approach and how did you?
Well, so this taps into something back into my humanitarian days. I got asked a similar question from in the marketing team that were there because we were talking about imagery and what we would actually use.
Yeah.
And this stance that I've got has been repeated and people keep quoting me on it now with regards to it's almost the right to be forgotten in a digital age, but taken into account with regards to avatars. And the aspect of that is I used characters that when the first concepts that we were doing for them, they were more cartoony and they didn't want what that they got. It wasn't hitting the essence. It wasn't in the mood. And so I offered to them, let me come back to you with some ideas. So I gave them several ideas, and then the end one being hyper real. And they went, can we have that? And I was like, yes, you can. Right, we'll build this out hyper real. And what I did is in the first instance, I painted it traditionally as a digital painting to have that hyper real, but it takes a long time to do that. You've got a lot of characters you're going to do. So what I also then looked at is designing a model where as a team, we could actually recreate and build more characters out now that we know what they want. So we'd lean into using AI and painted systems. So like a 1 would be prompt engineering, 2, fix it in Photoshop, 3, full bespoke kind of painting that you need to do for whatever the client wants. So a lot of the work we do leans in between that 1, 2, and 3, more like a 2 and a 3. With regards to the actual work that we're doing and how we do it with the avatars, if you were to take it into consideration, if we'd use real people, they could do something untoward, they could change their policy on politics, they could leave the organisation and not want to be done with it, or in drastic situations, they could be the face of something and then 10 years down the line, they've got kids and they're getting bullied or something based on the topic of whatever it was that they said that they wanted to be the face of. And especially when it's reputational risk or somebody does something untoward or wrong, that training has to come down.
I imagine that probably includes like locations. If you're working in Sandhurst and you're using the building and they've got a gymnasium, that's fine. And then next year they decide we're going to refurb it, knock it down and refurb. And then you're like, right, okay. The e-learning that they're doing now is not accurate. It's an old one, whereas they got a state-of-the-art one. And they're like, well, that's not where I am now.
But
so
there's another aspect to this in the sense of what you're trying to do is you're trying to get as many people to feel like they're engaged in it as possible. So I've nicknamed something a green screen internally before where we'll actually put together imagery and I'll throw it to because we've got a lot of veterans within CDSDS, and I'll throw it to them in the Teams chat and go, does this look like what a gym looks like? And then you'll get a lot of people, no, it's like this. And what it's done is, what they're actually doing is they're helping me by being able to get that believability. So going back to what I was saying before, as much as the story needs to be believable, the visuals need to be believable. So the characters need to feel that they've got the right look, they've got the right, even down to the berries. It's like how particular people are with berries. So we were making sure the berries were right, and we were making sure the uniforms were right. And AI will not get the MTP, the camouflage, right. So we painted that and we built the actual things up. So again, it goes into that blend of making sure that we've got the right visual story going in hand in glove with the narrative that we want to do. But the main key thing with regards to the actual avatars we're using is we've developed on all these characters and personas, and we don't have to then take it down if they've done something, because they don't exist outside of this world. They have been made bespoke for this kind of aspect. And we design for change as well. So if you turn around, it's like, well, we want to bring in a new welfare officer into this one. It's like, we'll build you a new character. The new welfare officer comes into the story, and we're building with that in mind, rather than, now we've got to go and find someone, but they've moved on and they're 2 years on, and etc.
So we've talked about gamified learning, but now we moved more on to Ethical Edge that you've put together. We've had it on our socials and on our website and everything, but anyone who's listening to this now or watching who hasn't heard of it before, what is Ethical Edge?
So Ethical Edge is a safe-to-fail decision-making game. And I would say a game model on that kind of side. So we've spoken previously on pretty much what that gamification thing. So think of Ethical Edge as our model within CDSDS of what we've actually can build for our clients to tackle any story that they're looking to actually take on, whatever topic they're trying to take. But what it will do is it looks to bridge that kind of gap with regards to, okay, we need to make sure that people learn fire safety. Let's go back to your original one with regards to fire safety, and it's like click, 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 click. How do we know they really get it? How do we know that they know the impact of not knowing it? How do we know that they get the essence of what's happened if they didn't do? How do they know the consequences of their actions? So by being able to actually incorporate that into a model, you can really bring in those kind of decisions. And especially if you want to bring in the empathy kind of side to it with regards to what thought process were you doing in there? What is it a moral decision? Is it a tactical decision? Is it a time-based decision as well? We can actually make it so that you have to make a choice within a short period of time. And what that enables us to be able to do is immerse people into the story with all these characters around them, where they can make all their decisions, and again, to repeat myself, into that safe-to-fail environment, so that when you come out of it, depending on whatever framework that you as a client need, whether like it was the leadership framework or whatever it is that you've got behind it, we write that story to make sure that we're measuring against that. We're writing our story to make sure it actually picks up on what you need your people to actually be able to actually do. Combine that as well with regards to the expertise that we can actually help and support with regards to the engagement, the look and feel, the story. And then at the end of it, do you want that to go to a workshop? Do you want it to sit as a precursor to some training? Do you want that to be a standalone piece that they actually get from it? Whatever it needs to be, it goes back to that model aspect.
I'm imagining then, you said, it's sort of like a modular approach, or like it can be tailored to any situation, any sort of framework, any client. It can be adapted. So in my mind, then you've got basically like a skeleton that you can take over to which situation you're in, and then you build around it. But the core setup stays the same, but you can adapt it to any situation.
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
it's not just copy and paste. There you are. Slap a price tag on it. Done. It's more of there's actually work that goes into it.
There's work that goes into it. Yeah, 100%. And what it is, as I say, that story drives a lot of it. What we've obviously got is we've established a model there, which isn't just, there we go, we'll make you a game. But it's won a global award. It's been recognised for the quality of what it's got and the aspects to it. It's also goes to the point of, like I said before, we could use this for. Yeah. And because the reason why people are saying that, we've actually got it in the sense of we've designed a model behind where it doesn't have to just be this. If we are talking to someone, you go, in fact, I had this when I was working with them, in the sense of, could we do this? And it's like, the software and the tools that we'll use don't normally do this. We push them. We'll find a way. We'll look to see what you're actually trying to do. We'll advise and we'll recommend, but at the same time, it's like, why are you looking to do that? I see why you're looking to do that. We could do this then, and I myself and the team will design a method to be able to answer what the need is. So as much as we've built the game as it is here, you may have a different need. So what we would do is we can change that. In fact, even the look and feel, depending on your audience, you can have a different look and feel. So the work that we did for the Army in Sandhurst was very hyper-real. It looked real. It got that kind of real characters. The stuff that we did for a demonstration for the police on a stop and search was very much illustrated and very colourful. Yeah. And the audiences are going to more likely be in their 20s and 30s, and you've got the likes of...
So even the art style can change and be adapted to it?
Yeah.
Right. I was going to say, was there a reasoning behind going the other way, going from hyper-real to... No, I wouldn't say comic book, it was more of a sort of like the Miles Morales Spider-Man films where it's a little bit grungier. Was there a reason? Was that the subject matter that he was covering? Did it fit a bit better?
In that case, it was a stop and search. And we were stopping and searching from a young person that's coming through from a police kind of perspective. And what I wanted to show is it's not a one-trick pony from one perspective, because a lot of people think, oh, they're only going to do the hyperreal, blah, blah. And it's like, no, if your audience are going to engage more with this, what we wanted to do is show capability from ourselves, because it was used for the actual show, but also from our audience perspective, you've got a young person there being stopped. I wanted to capture that emotion of that person being come through. And the hyperreal can do it, but the illustrative style just felt like it captured the essence more. The other thing is we actually created our own audio track to go into it as well, which really sort of wasn't intrusive, but it just set the atmosphere then to actually bring it in as well. So it just had that mood coming in, and we flipped the narratives.
I was just about to mention that. What I found different, I've played both of them, and what I found interesting on the second one, the stop and search, was, yes, you answer the questions, what do you do in this situation? But then it actually flips it the other way around. And then you find it from the other person's perspective, not just, oh, you scored good, you scored bad, here's your mark.
Yeah.
You actually saw it from the other person's point of view of seeing a police officer and being asked these questions. I thought that was interesting.
And it's a different take. So like you were saying, oh, I've got a score, it's A, B, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. What you're doing by doing the aspect of bringing and flipping the narrative, you're actually seeing, again, the consequences of what you've got in that safe to fail environment, but also from a motive side. So it's like, I think I did well, I've done this, and then you hear it from their side, and it's like, well, when you did that, I felt a little bit blah, 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 or I was put on my back foot, or it was really aggressive, or it was whatever. And whatever the actual response, by flipping that narrative,
sort of like the repercussions of your action.
100%, yeah. Repercussions of your actions that it can actually come through. And again, in the game. Because if you do that for real, so when you come to actually do that, and let's face it, as much as we can structure a game to be as perfect as possible, there's going to be nuances when you do things in the real life. But having some skin in the game, some experience, even if it's in that digital scope, based on stories where people have had these kind of experiences, you're going to have a much stronger foundation than if you're going into it where you've next clicked, read a PDF. Good luck.
Yeah. So just want to touch on the stop and search one. I believe we've got like a live demo link hosted somewhere that people can play on it. So I know it's on our LinkedIn, and I'm sure there's a link on the website as well. But there will, at the bottom of this, probably be the top pinned comment as well. But in the description, I'll put the link to the playable demo, so you can, the listeners and watchers can have a hands-on experience.
Absolutely, yeah. Please do play.
But then when you were creating this, and you create Ethical Edge, and you're like, haha, I've done it. And then what was the point where you realised actually this works? What we've put together is actually effective and has worked. Was it when, I know you and John sort of flew out to Orlando as well in December. You didn't brave the cold with us.
No.
In December, you went to sunny Orlando. So people having hands-on experience, what did you gauge from them? How did they sort of interact with it?
So even before that, we pilot things. So we piloted the actual game at Sandhurst with a team there, and we had people, the first comment was, oh, it's locked down. We can't just next click all the way through it. You have to engage. No. And then after that, they went, actually, I found that was really important. I needed to know the story. And then as it came to the end, they're going, I want to know what happens with this character. I want to know what happens. What's next? What's coming? So they want to hear the next part of the story. So right from there, even at a pilot where we're doing it, we're like, we've captured it. We've got it. And the other aspect that you're actually hearing is like this, you're hearing that this is so much more engaging than having a PDF or a PowerPoint to follow through or just following someone in the classroom. I'm playing through in the role, and I see myself in the shoes. When we were in Orlando and we were actually doing this, we ended up with probably one of the busiest stands that were there, in the sense of there was many a time where we'd end up with at least a few, and at one point we had almost like a little mini seminar around the stand where we were talking through why and what was going on, and people were playing it and they were talking through the actual aspect, and you could see where people were engaging and actually picking up on it on the story. The one thing they don't get to do at a conference, of course, is play through it all, because you've only got a short period of time. It's very noisy, even though you've got headphones and that. But what you could see is people were engaging in the bits they got. They were clicking into the inventory. They were looking at the bios to see who people were. They were engaging with the actual story, and they were asking questions. And the fact that there was a lot of questions, and some people were going in going, ethical decision making, why would it be? And then as they come through and go, oh no, actually it is. It's like,
I understand.
yeah. So it was really good, and they were getting it from it. So each of those kind of conversations that you're having, it just reinforces the fact, okay, yeah, winning a gold award, nice. That's nice to get recognition in a big reputable kind of organisation. In fact, I'm joining the team to actually help on that side, just going through the conversations to actually join the ITSEC team, and I'll be in Orlando again. Not in the cold.
Some people just suffer for the company, don't they?
100%, yeah. So
is that for the panel, or?
We've got a meeting coming up soon to see where I can actually best fit in there. So whether it's helping to actually judge the new kind of games that they're actually looking through. But it's a fantastic team there, a really lovely bunch of people. Whilst I was there, they were very supportive. They went through, everybody's an industry expert. So it's just, it's a privilege and honour to be able to actually support them. Everyone's volunteers. So it's been able to do that, and also be interesting to see what this year's submissions are and what they're actually coming through from that kind of side.
Okay, so going on to the awards, why do you think our project sort of stood out, why Ethical Edge stood out?
Scalability. And also, they're in a fantastic building. If ever you've been to Sandhurst, you have, I know, because you filmed there before. It's a beautiful building, fantastic. And just walking around it is just an absolute thing. But a lot of it does tend to be very old school, very old buildings, very stone, very much a broadband and internet is in a struggle. And it's a big thing that I find with a lot of places from when I used to work in the BMW Academy, and they've got all the dealerships. A lot of them are outside and they had poor bandwidth. When I'm actually here with regards to it, where you've got the camps, again, they can have struggle with the actual bandwidth. So for as much as people were actually talking around in that show, they were going VR, augmented, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's not that we're not looking to actually do that. But again, going back to our point of tech agnostic.
You got to know the limitations of your client.
And also, what do you need to do from the scalability kind of perspective, and also immersion?
Yeah.
So VR works really well if you want to immerse somebody into a scene that you actually do it. But you could always argue of, what do you need it? And it's like finding the real good use cases where you'd invest in that. So what we needed was a high-tech looking and feeling situation or model that could actually work in a low-tech environment, really. So you're going to not struggle as much with the bandwidth. So that was one of the big challenges, is developing something that can work in their environment. So we were streamlining and streamlining and streamlining and stripping back, and then building things and optimizing to be able to get it to actually work in there for them. And then when you see that actual product actually in place and people are testing it, and you've got 24 or 30 people in that building playing it at the same time, and you've probably got 2 or 3 that have got issues, but the rest of them are playing it fine. And this is at the pilot, the kind of the thing, and you're like, that works. We've hit it. The other bit where you're actually hearing the actual feedback as people are getting through, and you can hear the dialogue as you're in the room, listening to how people are playing it. And it's very much the old school trainer head of when I used to do stuff in the room as well. And you're listening to how people engage with each other and that side. They're immersed into the actual story. And then when you actually have the award itself and people have actually recognized it, you'd have to ask them what they particularly wanted to bring from it. But I think from where you've got Amanda on the stand, where she was actually talking through and going, we needed this high-tech looking, feeling solution in a low-tech environment with bandwidth, and all the people with the VRs kind of heart sinking a bit in the room because they've just been peddling this.
Any trade show I go to is always VR this, VR that, and then you've got camera set up so they can track with AR. And it's just like, I've been to quite a few of these barracks, and I'm like, I don't think it's going to...
There's always a way, but it will cost. There's a cost implication
Yeah.
to it, and you'd have to design for the thing. So it's not saying, no, we can't do that stuff. But again, that's tech agnostic. What we were trying to do is develop a model where we can actually get it so we can build things for people in the way where they can scale it, they can bring it through. They obviously picked it from the government audience, but I think from my side, it's the value it adds. It's that missing gap of gaining some experience when you've got none, and being able to actually prepare people for a situation as best you can.
Yeah.
Being able to actually put the situation where it's believable stories, being able to actually get that realism where people feel engaged with the characters.
And it's a safe area to fail.
100%. It's a safe place to actually fail. It's an opportunity to not only learn from the virtual mentor, but also ask your instructors afterwards. And you've got a set level of knowledge that people should be actually bringing to either the pre or post or those working groups that they've actually got. Even to the actual, when people were playing at the stand, they were asking questions and they were looking to what can we do from this and how can we apply it. You asked me, how do I know it works? The fact there was so much interest. The fact that it could be, again, going back to what I've said a few times, we could use this for.
So do you think this is where e-learning is sort of heading towards in the future?
I try not to use the word e-learning. I said that before, purely on the basis of going back to like you're saying, everyone, you say e-learning, people die a little inside. It's just like, I look at it more as digital learning experiences. So I see this as one of the many digital learning experiences that people can actually have. But I think as a movement, what is important is accessibility, which is another big factor that we look into, is stories where people can be engaged in, is looking to see what that gap is that you're actually trying to fill. Why would you be doing a piece of e-learning rather than a tick box exercise? And again, just making sure that when the real time and the moment comes, people are going to have a better chance to be able to respond in a positive way. Using your own analogy with regards to the fire thing, a fire happens, everyone's done as a tick box. The consequences of people not knowing is just devastating. And you can put that into any industry with regards to what you want to actually do. And it doesn't have to be as dramatic as that. It could be that you just want to actually make sure people get it, or you want to reinforce them, or you want them to help them on an onboarding kind of perspective. You want to get them from a well-being, or in the case of some of the things, sexual assault, theft, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, pick your topic. Pick your story is probably a better way of saying it.
Okay. And then my final question is sort of adds on top of this, where pre-COVID, there was a lot of tick boxes, and then, okay, we'll do this, we'll do that. Then we were sort of getting more interactive, and then COVID happened, and then everyone decided, why are we paying for this? We can just upload that PDF onto Moodle or the equivalent to Moodle and have our students just read a PDF, and I'll just record myself on my 720p or worse, the quality of a potato, sort of recording yourself. I'm just going to record it and everyone's going to listen and everyone's going to get it. Then we found after COVID that some people went, that probably wasn't the right thing to do. And it's sort of gone back to where the curve we would probably get into before COVID. So what do you think, as learning in general, what do you think is going to be the future? Now we've got sort of AI in the last 12, 18 months as well, has gone leaps and bounds. Where do you think, one, learning is going to go, and two, the tech is changing as well? Where do you think, what's going to be the next hot VR thing? What's going to replace VR?
I think what we've got here is we've got a hail back to the traditional thing. So you're right. When COVID struck, there was a massive push to recruit a lot of people to just stick everything they had in the face-to-face into an online space so everyone can do it. And it wasn't their fault. Schools, businesses, organizations, everybody had a need to make sure that not only could people be trained on what they needed to do, they needed to adapt to an online space because people were remote working or hybrid working. And in that case, it's like, okay, how do we tackle that? And there was a lot of gaps. And there was a lot of, well, you know training, you build this. It's like, but it doesn't necessarily mean it was designed right for that kind of side. All that aside, what we've got now is, several years later, what I think we've got is a hail back to traditional methodology balanced with technology. And what we've got here is we're looking for creatives, both from the instructional design side, and we're looking for creatives from the design side who can work hand in glove with regards to AI technologies to be able to actually develop for our customers and our clients and our learners' needs at pace, without it feeling like it's just been put through the mill and churned out because otherwise you've got back to the old COVID kind of situation. So it's a conscious decision of how you use the tools to be able to improve the experience that's coming through. What it does enable us to do is develop things that normally budgets wouldn't enable for. The ability where you could bring a video in, or you could bring in the character, or you could bring in the artwork. It allows people to be able to actually bring that in, whereas normally it would take more time or more cost or along those lines. But I think there's still an essence of, you're better to have people that know the design as well, using the tools to be able to build the things, because you'll see a significant difference to the haphazard. I gave it a shot, and there's nothing wrong if that's all you've got. But if you want a quality product that actually captures the whole essence, and it's got that consistency, and it's got that message, and it incorporates all the stuff, I think the future is going to be that blend, as I say. And I think the biggest risk you're going to find is people just rely on the AI, and then they'll lose a lot of the traditional kind of creativity. And what you'll end up with is 3 to 5 years down the line, juniors will probably suffer the most from this, because the AI will replace them in their kind of roles of where they would be doing it, because it'll pick up on those tasks. They're your middleweights, they're your seniors, they're your more, your future principals and creative leads. So what you want to do is make sure, and we do this particularly in here, is we make sure that we look after our people, we provide them with the tools, we research new tools, we look for innovation, we're tech agnostic. We will find the right tools that would work for our client, and if we don't have it, we'd look to actually build in it, we'd adapt to it. I know for myself, I'm a geek. I try to crawl back some cool with being an artist, but at the end of the day is, in my evenings, I'm still looking up what's going on, what's here, what's on that, what forums are here. I still play games, but I'm nowhere near as good as I used to be when I was younger. These days, it's more, how was that done? What was the structure? What was the rules of that? What's the consequence of that? And it's again, I can't turn the trainer and the creative off from that side. Even down to the environments, like you said before, it's like, how do I get that immersion? How's that audio? How's that come through?
Yeah.
And we'll use tools for everything along those lines, but balance that with traditional methodology.
Cool. Well, that is another briefing complete. I've tried it once or twice. That was probably the cheesiest one, but yeah. Thank you for coming back on.
No problem.
We've had a little chat, and I think there's at least 2 or 3 more that you can probably come back on and share your knowledge. And thank you for being on the briefing room.
Absolute pleasure, and hopefully it helps some people out, and please do come and talk to us. It's a great model. We enjoy building the stuff from it, but also it's just the impact that building serious games and gamification, and in particular our ethical edge model, it is really rewarding when you know that you're not just building something as a product, you're building something that can really make a difference, it can make an impact. And maybe that's the humanitarian coming creeping back out into it, but it really does. It makes a big difference.
And this is the part where I say, remember to like, subscribe, follow. If you're on YouTube, there's a hype button now. We've got previous episodes that have covered various topics, one of which is e-learning and DSAT, if you're interested in DSAT. End of this video, there will be 2 videos. One of them will be what the YouTube algorithm thinks is best for you to watch, and the other one will be the e-learning explained podcast. There'll also be, from this episode, there will be about 4 or 5. I'll chop them up into different clips. So you can always go back and rewatch the entire video again, or there'll be, look on the channel for 4 or 5 individual clips of sections. There'll also be shorts as well, for little snippets of 1 to 3 minutes. Thank you for watching all the way through, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.